the firm on fixed assets. Now, fixed assets such as plant and building, machineries, land, purchasing of new machinery, or it might be replacement of a machinery. The organization always invests huge amount of money on this capital expenses, and this is also termed as a long-term investment. Now, why do I call this as a long-term investment is that the returns are not expected within a day or within a short period of time. It takes a long duration for the returns to come inside the organization. Having understood what is meant by capital expenditure, now let's move on to what is meant by capital budgeting. The organization has to decide whether to invest in these capital expenses or not, depending on the future returns. To make it much more easier, let's take an example where the organization has decided to purchase a machinery of rupees 20 lakhs. Now this 20 lakhs is called as the investment. The money is moving away from the organization, so I call this as the cash outflow. For the amount what the organization is investing today, the firm has to see what might be the future expected returns for this kind of investment. Let us also assume that the life of the machinery is 5 years. Now 5 years, why I have taken is that it might expire after 5 years, or we can say that the machinery might become obsolete because of technology or due to wear and tear. So the returns are expected to come inside the organization over a period of 5 years. Now the organization will decide whether it's going to be a profitable business in investing in this particular machinery or not. Now this concept is called as capital budgeting. By investing in this particular machinery, what is expected? The operational capacity of the firm might increase, increasing the sales volume, thereby increasing revenue, and in future, the profits of the organization might also increase. If it's going to be only one machinery, then it's not going to be a big problem to the organization. Let's assume that the organization is having only 20 lakhs in hand and it has two proposals in front of it, where two machineries it can purchase. One is machinery A and machinery B, and both are costing the same cost of rupees 20 lakhs. Now the organization is in a confusion whether to invest in machinery A or in machinery B. In this kind of a situation or in a criteria, the organization decides whether to select A or B depending on the capital budgeting techniques. In the future slides, we will be discussing on various capital budgeting techniques, which will tell us how the returns differ from one technique to another technique and how the organization can decide which machinery it can select, whether machinery A or machinery B. Okay. Now, nature of capital budgeting. As I have already told, capital budgeting involves huge investments and it's a long-term expenditure for the organization. The returns are expected only after a long period of time, and the future investments it takes for 5 years or 6 years. It depends on whatever investments the organization makes. This capital budgeting also talks about something called as risk factor. Now, why do we call it as a high risk investments? Because the returns are not expected today, but the returns are expected in a future date, which is called as uncertain. Now, this we would have already discussed in our earlier classes in time value of money and in other decisions which we have discussed in the financing decision models. Okay. Next, moving on to the process of capital budgeting. The organization now has various steps which it follows in order to determine which machinery it will select, whether machinery A or machinery B. Now let's assume only one example I have taken where the organization has decided to select either machinery A or machinery B, and the investment which it's going to make is going to be 20 lakhs. Now that's called as project generation. Now it has to one is machinery B. The second step, we call it as project evaluation. In project evaluation, the firm decides based on the future returns. Now, future returns, today the organization calculates what might be the future returns for this particular machinery over a period of 5 years. Now, why do I call it as 5 years? Is in the beginning of the lecture, I told that let's assume that the life period of this machinery is going to be 5 years. Once it is evaluated, now the organization decides whether to select missionary A or missionary B. So this is called as project selection. Once it has selected, it implements the project, and further review is done on whether the particular missionary is providing the particular returns over a period of 5 years. Okay? Having understood the process of capital budgeting, now let's move on to determine the significance of capital budgeting. Now, as I have already explained to you, it's a long-term effect. It's highly risky investment because investments or the returns are expected to be over a period of 5 years or 6 years, and it's a long term. It's an irreversible decision. Well, why do I call it as an irreversible decision is that once the decision is made, you cannot take back the decision, and what has to go about it with it, and if it's going to be a loss, the organization has to take up the loss. And it's a difficult. No. No. அப்படிங்களா? ஓகே 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 சார். ஓகே 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 சார். Sorry for irreversible decision because the organization, once it has invested in this particular investment, it cannot revert back whatever it has done. If it's going to be a loss, then it's going to be a loss to the organization, and it's a difficult in capital budgeting. Then it also talks about as capital structure planning. We've seen in our earlier classes what is meant by capital structure. Capital structure means it is the various source of funds which an organization raises for நான் ஒன்றும் பண்ணுறேன் சார். இப்போ எந்த ஃபேஸ் சைடில் வரலையா, நடுவில் வருது? ஓகே. Now let's look into the various capital budgeting techniques. There are two important capital budgeting techniques. One method is called as a non-discounted method, and another method is called as a discounted method. Now, what do you mean by a non-discounted method and a discounted method? Now here, let's discuss about time value of money. Now, what is meant by time value of money? Money does not have same value at different periods of time. It differs from time to time. Now, in the previous sessions, we have already seen about the present value of money and future value of money. 1 rupee today is more certain than getting the same 1 rupee after a period of time, maybe 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. So the value of 1 rupee today is more compared to the value of 1 rupee what I will be receiving after 1 year or after 2 years or after 3 years or after a period of time. Now that's called as discounted technique and non-discounted technique. In discounted technique, we try to discount based on the discounting factor, now which that the organization decides what might be the discounting factor. In a non-discounting cash flow, generally, they will not do any discounting. Now to move about with the non-discounting cash flow, first technique, we call this as the payback period, and it is a very traditional method which the organizations use. Now, as the name says, payback period means it is the time taken for the organization to get back whatever investments it has made. Now, in our example, I told you that we are planning to purchase a machinery of rupees 20 lakhs. Now, the 20 lakhs is the investment what the organization has made. So the time taken to retrieve back that 20 lakhs is called as the payback period. Now, it might take 2 years or it might take 3 years or 5 years. It depends on the returns what the organization gets on that particular investment is determined using a method called as payback period. Now, as the name clearly says, payback period, if the payback period is going to be less, then it is more profitable to the organization because you are going to get the returns within a short period of time. If it's going to take more years, then it's going to take much more longer time for me to get back the returns. So generally what we say that the minimum the payback period is, we have to accept the proposal. If the payback period is going to be for a huge or longer duration, then we can reject the proposal. Yeah. Now, we have already spoke about what is meant by cash inflow and what is meant by cash outflow. Now, cash outflow is the amount which moves out of the organization, and cash inflow is the amount which comes inside the organization. Now, cash inflow itself, we are going to divide it into two types. One is called as a uniform cash inflow, and another one is called as a non or an ununiform cash inflow. Now, what do you mean by a uniform cash inflow? Now, for the same example, whatever I have taken, I told you that we are planning to invest in a machinery of rupees 20 lakhs, for example. Then that 20 lakhs becomes your investment. Okay. Then the returns, whatever I'm going to get, the time period totally, it's going to the machinery's life period is going to be totally how many years? 5 years. If in that case, every year there's going to be some amount of return. If the return is going to be same for all the 5 years, then we call it as an uniform cash inflow. If the return is going to be different for each year, then it's called as a non-uniform cash inflow. Now, in this example, whatever I have taken, if you can see the slides now, you please follow me. There is a formula. It says payback period is equal to original investment by annual cash inflow. Now, in this example, the investment is totally 1 lakh. The organization has invested in purchasing a machinery for a value of how much? 1 lakh. So this becomes the original investment or the initial investment, we can say, or I can also call it as a cash outflow or a cash outlay of an organization. Okay. Now, the annual cash inflow, which means the amount which is flowing inside the organization. Now, this is called as the annual cash inflow, which comes inside the organization, and it's going to be uniform for a period of time. It's not going to be ununiform. It's going to be uniform, and it's going to be uniform cash inflow, and let's say it's 20,000. We just use a formula which says original investment by annual cash inflow. You divide and you're going to get a payback period of totally 5 years. Now, what this says is that for investing 1 lakh in that machinery, the organization is going to get back that 1 lakh in a period of how many years? In a period of 5 years. Okay. Now, I can also try doing this for 2 or 3 machineries and find out whichever is giving me a lesser payback period will be the best proposal or the project which an organization has to select. Now, in the same example, if it's going to be for another machinery, if the payback period is going to be 3 years, now compared to these both, I will select only the machinery which is giving me a payback period of 3 years. Yeah. Now, we have seen uniform cash inflow payback period. Now we are going to see an unequal or a non-uniform cash inflow payback period. Now in this case, the formula itself differs. Now here you can see the payback period is calculated based on year before full recovery plus unrecovered amount of investment divided by cash inflows during the next year. Now this can be better understood by taking an example. Let's just look at the example here. You can see this is a proposal or a project where an organization has planned to purchase a machinery, and the initial investment which an organization has made is total 1 lakh. That's here I have shown it as the cash outflow is how much rupees? 1 lakh. Now you can see the cash inflows are totally different for every year. Can you see that? Now initially when we saw the cash inflow was same for all the 5 years and it was 20,000. But here you can see for first year the cash inflow is 20,000. For the second year it is 30. For the third year 40. Fourth year 50, and fifth year 30. Thereby this kind of a cash inflow is called as a non-uniform cash inflow or an unequal cash inflow. Okay. Now for this, if I am planning to calculate the payback period, how should I go about this? I have to calculate something called as cumulative cash flow. Now, what is meant by a cumulative cash flow is you are going to add the present cash flow with the previous cash flow. Now, for the first year, if you see the cash flow is 20,000, the cumulative cash flow is also the same because that's going to be the first year cash inflow for us and it's only 20,000. Now, for the second year, you can see the cash inflow is 30,000. So, cumulative cash inflow will be the first year's cash inflow is 20,000. You add this 30,000 and you're going to get around 50,000. So, this is called as the cumulative cash inflow for the second year. Now, come to the third year, the cash inflow is 40,000. So, cumulative cash inflow will be 50,000 of the previous cumulative cash flow. You add the present third year's cash inflow, which is 40,000. When you add these both, it becomes 40 plus 50,000, giving you 90,000 as your cumulative cash inflow. Now, again, for the fourth year, if you see the cash inflow is 50,000. So, cumulative cash inflow, you add this 90,000 with 50,000, it becomes 1,40,000. In the fifth year, the cash inflow is 30,000. So, cumulative cash inflow, you are going to add this 30,000 to the previous cumulative cash inflow, which is 1,40,000, giving you 1,70,000. Now, by doing this, like I'm trying to do it in a diagonal way. If you can see, it's diagonally I'm adding. Thereby, I'm going to get the cumulative cash inflow in the third column. Once the cumulative cash inflows are calculated, now I'll be substituting it in the formula. Now you have to understand that what's my initial investment. Now in the previous slide, you can see that your cash outflow or your initial investment is rupees 1 lakh. So 1 lakh, the time when I am going to receive that 1 lakh is called as the payback period. Now when you see your third, totally your third column, the first year you are receiving only 20,000, second year 50,000, third year 90,000, and fourth year it is 1,40,000. So 1 lakh is lying between third year and the fourth year. If you can see that it's lying between third year and the fourth year. So I'm very clear that totally the time taken for the payback period is 3 years. So I have come to a conclusion that it's lying somewhere between third year and fourth year. So completed years, if you take, it's going to be 3 years. Once that is calculated, now I am going to see the required inflow and the inflow of the next year. Now out of that 1 lakh, 90,000 I have got within a period of how many years? 3 years. The remaining, how much I require? Remaining, I require only 10,000. Now, the initial investment was 1 lakh. Out of that 90,000 I got within 3 years, so minus 90,000. The amount, whatever I'm going to get is called as that 10,000 is what I require more. Okay, the 10,000 is the required inflow. Now, that is divided with the inflow of the next year. The inflow of the next year is 50,000. Now, what does it mean? Within 1 year, the cash inflow is 50,000, but out of the 50,000, I require only how much? I require only 10,000. When you divide that, you will be getting somewhere around 0.2. When you add these both, if the answer comes to 3.2 years. Okay, so this is how you calculate the non-discounting payback period. In non-discounting payback period, the steps to be followed is that initially you have to calculate cumulative cash inflow. Once the cumulative cash inflow is calculated, you have to determine where does your initial investment lie, between which year and which year. Now for me, the initial investment lies between the third year and the fourth year. And I have decided that it's somewhere between third year and fourth year. So the completed years are how much? 3 years. Now within the 3 years, I have got a cash inflow of 90,000. So remaining is how much? Remaining is 10,000. That 10,000, I will be getting it in the next year. In that 1 year, the cash inflow is 50,000. So the 10,000 within how many months I will be getting, I am calculating. So 10 divided by 50,000 based on the inflow of the next year. The answer is 3.2 years. This is a very important method, a traditional method, which nowadays most of the organizations do not follow such kind of methods. Now we are only focusing on discounting payback period. When we have seen various researches done by various other companies, when I have read many articles, now many companies only talk about something called as discounting methods rather than the non-discounting methods, but still we should know our traditional methods which was followed in the earlier days. Okay. So the decision rule for this, as you say, as I already mentioned, is that whenever your payback period is less, you accept the proposal. Whenever your payback period is more, you reject the proposal. The advantages of this payback method, if you see, it's a very simple method and it is easy for everyone to calculate, and you can determine whichever is having a lesser payback period can be accepted. The disadvantage of this method, as I have already mentioned, is that it does not take into consideration time value of money, which is a very important concept, because money is not having the same value at every period of time. And it also ignores something called as the profitability, because we are only talking about how many years it's going to take for me to get back the amount, but I'm not considering whether it's going to be a profitable investment or not. Sometimes sometimes how it happens is that after this 3 years, my cash inflow might become very less. Now, in this example, is totally different, where the cash inflow is huge, where it's 1,40,000 or 1,70,000. This shows it's a very profitable investment. But it might not be the same in all the cases. Sometimes in the 4th year, the investment might become very less, or the cash inflow might become very less. And now here you can see in the 5th year, the cash inflow is 30,000. Sometimes it might be only 10,000, or sometimes it might be 2,000. Sometimes there might not be any cash inflow. Where using this method, I cannot say whether it's a profitable method or not, but I can only say within how much period of time I can get back the money, whatever I have invested. Okay. Then, having seen this payback method, let's go on to the second traditional method. The second method is called as average rate of return method or accounting rate of return method. It's both are the same. Whether you might call it as an average rate of return or an accounting rate of return, in the normal terms, we call it as an ARR method. As the name clearly says, we will be talking about the returns based on the average investments, whatever the organization has made. And this ARR method is also called as a financial ratio method. As the name says, ratio means it's we are going to divide something over something. Now here we are going to see, we are going to divide whatever returns we are going to get based on the investments what the organization has made. Okay. Now again, this ARR can be calculated based on a formula which says average profit after tax by initial investment, or we can also call it as an average profit after tax by average investment. Now, how to go about with this? I have taken an example. When you look at the examples, you will have a better understanding. Okay. Now, the average earnings what an organization makes in that particular 5 years or 6 years or 4 years, how many ever years the project is going to be, that is taken. Based on that, the average investments are also calculated. Now, for our understanding, I have taken an example where now the organization has to decide which is going to be a profitable investment for me, whether it is machine A or machine B. In both the cases, you can see the cost or the initial investment what an organization makes on machine A is 56,125, and on machine B it is 58,125. Now these are called as the initial cash outlay, or I can call it as the cash outflow of the organization, or the capital expenditure, or the money what the organization is investing in that particular proposal. Okay. Now you can see we are totally calculating this based on the earnings what the organization gets after depreciation and tax. Now here you can see in year 1, these are the cash, these are the earnings what the organization gets, and in for machine B, these are the earnings what the organization gets. Now you can see that 3,375 and 11,000. Now these are the cash inflows, or I can call it as the earnings what the organization gets in machine A as well as in machine B. Now when I add all these together, that's called as the total earnings what I get because of the investment whatever I have made. The investment whatever I have made is 56,125. For that, the earnings what it has given me for the last 5 years, you can see 36,875. And again here also for the investment whatever I have made, the earnings what the organization has got is 36,875. The estimated period of the machine is 5 years. I told you generally we have to initially assume what's going to be the estimated period of the machine. Now in this problem it says that the estimated period of the machine is 5 years for machine A and also 5 years for machine B, and they have also given a salvage value of 3,000. Now what's meant by the salvage value? Salvage value means the resale value of the asset. Now if I'm planning to sell this machinery after 5 years, the resale value of this machinery is going to be 3,000, and here also you can see the resale value of this machinery is going to be 3,000. The salvage value can also be called as the scrap value. Interchange people call it either as salvage value, or you can call it as the scrap value, which means the resale value of the asset at the end of the life of the machine or the life of the asset. Now, having understood that, now how to go about with this is annual average earnings after tax, which is calculated based on total earnings by estimated period of life. Now, for example, Mission A, if you see, my total earnings is 36,875 and the year of life is 5 years. When I divide the sum by 5, I get the average. Now, that's how we calculate the average, right? So the sum is 36,875 divided by 5, where you are going to get the average. So you can see the average earnings for Mission A and Mission B, both are the same, because for both the total earnings are the same. One is 36,875, both 36,875. Then the let's see, look at the denominator. We are going to see how to calculate the average investment. Now, average investment is calculated based on using this formula: initial investment by salvage value divided by 2 plus working capital plus salvage value. Now, here you can see what's your initial investment for Mission A. For Mission A, the initial investment is 56,125. You just substitute 56,125 and you are going to subtract the salvage value. So salvage value is somewhere around 3,000. You divide by 2 plus working capital. Now, why the formula has working capital, but in the problem there is no working capital. In future, if you are going to get any problems with working capital, and you have to, when you are using this formula, you have to substitute the value of working capital in the formula. Okay, so you add this working capital. Now, for us it's 0, that's why I've shown it as 0. Plus again you add the salvage value. Now this is the average investment for Mission A. It's 29,562. The same way you calculate for Mission B. You put the substitute the cost of the machine, which is 58,125, then minus the salvage value divided by 2, plus we don't have working capital, so you just put 0 plus the salvage value again 3,000. When you calculate, it comes to 30,562. Now, having found the value of the denominator, and here we have found the value of the numerator, you just substitute in the formula. So here you can see for Mission A, it is 7375 divided by 29,562. Into 100 to calculate the percentage, you're going to get 25% for Mission A, and for Mission B, you're going to get 24%. Now, what do I mean by this 25% and 24%? It means that for an investment of 100 rupees, the organization will get a return of 25 rupees. If I'm going to talk in 1 rupee term, for an investment of 1 rupee, the organization is going to get 25 paise as the return. Now, if you see in both these cases, for an investment of 100 rupees in Mission A, the return is 25. For an investment of 100 rupees in Mission A, the return is 24. Now, which one will I select? Whichever is having the highest returns. So, in Mission A, it is 25 rupees. In Mission 2 or in Mission B, it is 24 rupees. So, directly I will go and select Mission A as the best proposal, and that the organization will select that as the best proposal, and they will go about in purchasing Mission A. Okay, so just to recap on how to go about with this ARR calculation is, you have to initially determine something called as the total earnings. You divide by the number of years, the machine life of the years, you will be getting the average earnings. That's going to be your numerator. Next, you are going to calculate the denominator. For denominator, you are going to take your initial investment minus the salvage value if given in the problem, divided by 2, plus working capital if given in the problem, plus the salvage value. You will be getting the average investment. Having calculated both the numerator and denominator, you substitute in the formula. Whatever you get is going to talk about for every 1 rupee investment, how much paise returns I'm going to get. So in our example, we have seen Mission A is the better one, because for every 100 rupee investment, it's giving me a return of 25 rupees. Okay. Now you can see the merits of ARR. You can see the merits of ARR. Again, as per the payback period, as I told you, payback period only talks about the time taken for me to get back the money, whatever I have invested. ARR is not only talking about the time taken, it's talking about the profits. ARR talks about the profits, and it also talks about the total entire life of the machine. Now, in payback period, we saw that we got the returns within 3 years, but here you can see we are talking about the total 5 years life of the machine. The same way, moving on to the demerits of ARR, as discussed in the earlier payback period. Again, ARR is also a non-discounted technique, which is a traditional method which is not followed by most of the organization. As I told you, only discounted techniques are followed by organizations. So this has a lot of important disadvantages, that it does not take time value into consideration. And one more thing is, it considers only accounting profits. Okay. So having understood two methods here, we saw two methods. One is payback period and another one is accounting rate of return. Both are traditional methods. Now I am going to shift on to the second important technique, which is called as the discounted cash flow technique, where we are going to see at least two types today. One is NPV and another one is PI. Okay. So moving on to the an important technique which generally organizations follow is that many organizations follow NPV method in determining the which proposal has to be selected, and this is considered as one of the best capital budgeting technique based on various research being conducted, and based on the organizations their feedback. This is what we have got. Okay. Now to move on with how to calculate NPV, as I have already told you, NPV considers a very important concept which is called as time value of money. Now I have already explained this many times in the class. Now you can see 1 rupee today is not the same as I am going to receive after a period of time. So for that, I have to discount it to see what's going to be the value of 1 rupee today. Now, if I'm going to take 10% as the discount factor, then if I calculate and if I see after 1 year, if somebody says I'll give you 1 rupee, the value of that 1 rupee today is only 90 paise. When I'm discounting it with a discount rate of 10%. Now, how do I calculate that it's 90 paise? How did I calculate? Is based on this formula. What we see, we calculate the PV factor based on the formula 1 divided by 1 plus R to the power of N. Okay. Now this R is called as the discount factor, or we can call it as the cost of capital, or we can call it as rate of return, however we call it. Now this is called as the R. Now as I told you, 1 divided by 1 plus 10% is 0.10 to the power of N. Here N I am talking about 1 year. So N becomes 1 year. If you have a calculator there, you can calculate and see your PV factor will be somewhere around 0.909, which means 1 rupee today, after 1 year, if I'm going to receive from someone, it's going to be, the value is going to be only 90 paise and it's not going to be 1 rupee. Okay. Now, why is that people are talking about this discounting technique? Discounting technique is that when we are talking about certain huge investments, today I have invested, let's say, around 1 lakh into some business, and somebody says that after 5 years or 6 years, you will be getting back the returns around 1,20,000. After 6 years, if somebody says I'll be giving you after 6 years 1,20,000. So for me, I might think 1 lakh I have invested, and I'm going to get back 1,20,000 after 6 years. So thereby, my investment is 1 lakh. I'm going to get back 1,20,000. So 1,20,000 minus 1 lakh will be giving me a profit of 20,000. But if I'm going to calculate like that, it's a very crude way of calculating, because I have not considered something called as time value of money. The reason is I'm going to get back that 1,20,000 not today, but I'm going to get back that 1,20,000 only after 6 years, which means the money what I'm going to get back after 6 years is highly uncertain. Certainty is not there. It has high risk. So some amount has to be discounted to show that what's going to be the present value today. And the discount factor is generally determined by the organizations. They might have a base discount factor of 8% to 10%. And moreover, if we are talking in terms of financial terms, we take the market value and we do the discount factor. Now, since we are discussing about the machineries, the organization has to decide what's going to be the discount factor. Now, having understood what's meant by the time value of money, what's meant by the discount factor, now you just see that now in this case of net present value method, if I'm going to invest 1 lakh today, that 1 lakh is called as the present value, whatever I'm investing today. So it's called as cash outflow, because money is moving away from the organization, and today I'm going to do the investment. So it's a present value money. We call it as the present value of outflow. Now, can you see here? This is called as the present value of outflow. Then, how much is going to be the inflow? And again, it depends. based on the period of the missionary. If it's going to be a 5-year period or a 7-year period or a 10-year period, every year cash inflows might differ. I might have a uniform cash inflow, I might have an ununiform cash inflow. Now we will calculate based on a non-uniform cash inflow so that easily you can understand a uniform cash inflow. So the present, whatever cash inflow I'm going to get after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years are not present, but it's what I'm going to get after a period of 1 year, after a period of 2 years, and those are called as future values. So I have to calculate what's going to be the present value of cash inflow based on a factor called as PV factor. So to have a proper understanding of this, I have taken an example. You can just follow with me with the slide. The expected cash inflow of a project, the year 5 years, same example I've taken where the cash inflow is 20,000 for the first year, 30,000, 40, 50, and 30,000 for the fifth year. The cash outflow is rupees 1 lakh, which means the initial investment is how much? The initial investment is going to be rupees 1 lakh. The cost of capital or the discount factor or the rate of return is going to be 10,000. I'm going to calculate the NPV, and also I'm going to see what's meant by profitability index, which I will explain with this problem. Now you can see the 5 years period I have written. The life of the missionary is totally 5 years. Cash inflow is given in the problem 20, 30, 40, 50, and 30. Now I am going to calculate the PV factor at 10%. Now how to calculate the PV factor at 10% is based on the formula which I have already shown you. 1 divided by 1 plus r to the power of n, where r is 10% for me in the problem. 10% means 10 divided by 100, which gives you 0.10, and n becomes 1 here. For the first year, n becomes 1. If you calculate, you will be getting 0.909. For the second year, same way, 1 by 1 plus r. Now r is again 0.10 to the power of n. Now since it is the second year, n becomes 2 there. If you calculate, you will be getting 0.826. The third one, for the third year, 1 by 1 plus r, again 10%, 0.10 to the power of n. N becomes 3. When you calculate that, you will be getting 0.751. For the fourth year, n becomes 4. For the fifth year, n becomes 5. When you calculate, you will be getting these values. Now, you can very well see that as the time increases, as the number of years increases, your PV factor keeps on decreasing. What does it mean? Now, 1 rupee value is at 0. Now at present, if I am talking at 0, it is 1 rupee. After 1 year, the value of 1 rupee is going to be 90 paise. After 2 years, the value is going to be 82 paise. After 3 years, it's going to be 75. After 4 years, 68 paise. After 5 years, 62 paise. Okay. So today, if I'm going to calculate, then if I'm going to receive 1 rupee after 5 years, today the value is going to be only how much? 60 paise. So if somebody is going to tell me, I'll give you after 5 years, I'll return back your 1 rupee. If somebody is going to tell me the real value of that 1 rupee is going to be only how much? Only it's going to be 60 paise, which is again not a very profitable business for me. That's why we calculate PV factor to determine what's going to be the present value. Now all this, whatever we have calculated, is for 1 rupee. Now since my cash inflow is 20,000, I have to multiply with this 20,000. So 20,000 into 0.909 will be giving me my present value cash flow, which is 18,000. Again, multiply 30,000 with 0.826, you will get 24,000 odd. 40,000 into 0.751, you are getting 30,000, 040. 50,000 into 0.683, you are getting 34,150. 30,000 into 0.620, you are getting 18,600. Now in all these cases, you can see 20,000 if I am going to receive after 1 year, the value today is only 18,000. After 5 years, if I am going to receive 30,000, the value is only how much? 18,600 as of today. So any proposal an organization has to decide, it is going to decide today based on the future cash inflows. It's all the projected cash inflows. The organization projects the cash inflows, future cash inflows, and it decides whether to take up the project or not. So once all these present value cash inflows are calculated, you sum it up. Once you sum it, you add all these 5 together, whatever you are going to get is called as the total cash inflow. And then this is the cash inflow. The total inflow is 1,25,750 for our problem. I have invested somewhere around, I have invested 1 lakh. So for an investment of 1 lakh, I'm getting a total inflow of 1,25,750. Now you can see the formula to calculate the net present value is cash inflow minus cash outflow. So this is how we calculate cash inflow minus cash outflow. Now you can see 1,25,750 minus 1 lakh. My net present value is going to be 25,750. Now the net present value is a positive value, which clearly shows that I'm getting more than what I have invested. Therefore, I can take up this business. Now, if I'm going to do this for two missionaries, let's say missionary A and missionary B, or I can even do for 5 proposals or 10 proposals, how many ever proposals you do it in the same way, and you calculate something called as the NPV. Higher the NPV, you select the project, which means I am having more cash inflow than the cash outflow. So for example, now in this problem, we are having an NPV of 25,750. If I am having another one more missionary, which gives me an NPV of 30,000, I will select missionary B compared to missionary A, because that's giving me a better cash inflow compared to this missionary. Okay, so my NP, the higher the NPV you select, so that's going to be your selection criteria. Your selection criteria is always, if it's going to be one single project, if your NPV is greater than 0, you accept. If your NPV is less than 0, always you should reject, which means less than 0 means you're getting a negative NPV, which means your cash inflows are lesser than whatever you have invested. If it's going to be 2 projects or 3, 4 proposals, if I'm comparing, in that case, my first decision criteria will be based on the positive and the negative. The second decision criteria will be based on the higher NPV. Higher the NPV, you select the project. If the NPV is low compared to the other one, you just reject the project. And the discount factor, as I told you, it depends on the organization to select the discount factor, how much they want to discount, and they'll be calculating the present value. Okay, so to have a recap on how to calculate this net present value, as I have already told you, initially you should know what's the formula. The formula to calculate NPV will be cash inflow minus cash outflow. You know what is the cash outflow? That's your investment, whatever you have made. And my cash inflow, I have to calculate present value cash inflow based depending on the PV factor. You calculate the PV factor. Now PV factor values again vary based on the discount factor. For 10%, this is the PV factor. For 12%, it might vary. For 15%, it might vary. Now will I calculate the PV factor? PV factor is calculated based on the formula 1 by 1 plus r to the power of n. So n is the number of years. For 1 year it is 2, for 5 years it is 5. Based on that, you calculate the PV factor. Once you calculate that, you do the total summing up, where you will be getting the total cash inflow minus the cash outflow. Whatever you get is called as the net present value. Okay, and as I told you, this is one of the best method which the organizations follow, because it is taking time value of money into consideration. It is also talking about discount factor. It is also talking about determining the present value of cash inflow. Now that's one of the advantages of using this NPV method. And then we have another one more method that's called as the profitability index, or we call it as the PI method. Now this is how we calculate the PI method. PI method also, we follow the same way as we do for NPV. You have to calculate the total present value. Once the total present value is calculated, instead of there we will be doing the subtraction, but here we are going to do division. Total cash inflow divided by total cash outflow. Now this total cash inflow is present value cash inflow. Since it is a ratio, if it's going to be greater than 1, you accept. Greater than 1 means it clearly shows that your inflow is going to be higher than the outflow. So if it is greater than 1, you accept the project. If it is going to be less than 1, you reject the project. Now the same example, you can see. Same way, cash inflows will be given, PV factor will be given, you determine the discount factor will be given, you determine the PV factor, you determine the present value of cash inflow. Once that is done, you determine the total cash inflow. Once you determine the total cash inflow, how to calculate the profitability index is total cash inflow divided by the cash outflow. So in our example, it will be 1,25,750 divided by 1 lakh, which will give you 1.2575. And the PI value here, you can see it is greater than 1. The ratio is greater than 1, showing us it is a profitable investment. So I can select this project. Okay. Now again, if it's going to be 2 or 3 conditions or 2 or 3 proposals I have in hand, the higher the PI factor, I will be selecting. For example, here it is 1.25. I might have another missionary B which will be giving me a PI factor of 1.5, which shows that the cash present value cash inflow is higher. Thereby, I will be selecting whichever is having a higher PI value. Now, having understood this NPV, and I hope you have understood how to calculate profitability index. Now, compared to the traditional method and the non-traditional method, which one is a better method is we are only talking about the present non-traditional method. It's called as the discounting technique. But still, we should have an idea about what is meant by the traditional method. Okay. So now you can get back to the definition of this capital budgeting, as I didn't discuss about the definition because I thought once you have understood everything, it will be easy. Capital budgeting may be defined as a firm's decision to invest its current funds. What do you mean by current funds? Today, what the organization is having, that money in hand, most effectively in long-term activities. And I told you it's a long-term investment. All capital expenses or the capital expenditure is a long-term activity. How efficiently it's going to invest. If I am having 5-6 proposals, in which proposal it is going to invest. That's what we are talking about, the efficiency of investment. Based on what? Based on the expected flow of future benefits. Today we are anticipating what's going to be the future benefit. I'm going to find out what's going to be, or I'm going to assume what's going to be the future benefit over the years, and I'm going to determine whether to select that particular proposal or not. Okay. So having understood about these two important techniques, next I will just move on to another important one more technique called as IRR. IRR, it's again called IRR, internal rate of return method. Okay. Now this also many companies use. They use NPV as well as IRR, but IRR is a little tricky method compared to NPV. But IRR can be very well calculated using Excel models, or financial modeling tools are there to calculate IRR. Now all that we'll be seeing in the future classes. Okay. So if I'm going to calculate very manually, then we talk about something called as a trial and error method, and I will determine what's going to be the IRR. Now, what is meant by this IRR is that I am going to find out at what rate of return my NPV becomes 0. What does it mean? It means the rate of return at which my net present value is going to become 0. And then we have the various formulas to determine IRR. Now, as it says, it is a trial and error method because the discount factor or the cost of capital or the rate of return will not be given, and I am going to determine what's going to be the rate of return. I'm going to determine the cost of capital, or I'm going to determine the discounting factor here. In the previous NPV, we saw that we have determined the net present value, but here I am also going to determine what is the IRR. Now, if I am going to find out the rate of return at which my NPV is going to become 0, what does it mean that my NPV is going to become is the rate of return at which my investment or my cash outflow and my cash inflow is going to be the same. Okay. So that's what we are going to see, or in very simple terms, we can put it as I'm going to see at what rate of return I'm going to break even. Okay. Now here the two formulas, whatever you prefer, you can use. When I do the trial and error method, I calculate the IRR. So one might be a lower value, one might be a higher value. So if I'm using the higher value, I use this formula. If I'm using the lower value, I use this formula. Now for the better understanding, I've taken just an example. Just follow with me. You will have a better idea about this, how to calculate IRR. Okay. Now here you see, we have totally one problem is given, the same problem I have taken. Okay. Now we'll go back to the same problem. Let's add that here we are going to determine IRR. Now if you see the same problem, 5 years, your cash flow is 20, 30, 40, 50, 30, and your cash outflow is 1 lakh. Let's forget about the cost of capital, because in IRR, cost of capital is not given, okay, or the rate of return is not given. I am going to determine the rate of return. Yeah. Now you can see this is given in the problem. This is given in the problem. I am going to assume what's going to be my rate of return. Okay. Now, how will I assume my rate of return is generally what we say is that you can start from 10%. So you start from 10% and you find out what's going to be your total cash inflow. You find out what's going to be your NPV. Now, if your NPV is going to be positive, I have to find out another factor where my NPV is going to be negative. So what is the condition determining this IRR is I have to find out two NPVs where one NPV is going to be positive and one NPV is going to be negative. Now, if you can see here very well, now this is again a trial and error method, an assumption which I have taken. So I have taken 19% as my assumption. And for that 19%, you determine the PV factor. Now, will you determine the PV factor? We have already seen 1 divided by 1 plus R to the power of n. Now, R is 19%, which is 0.19. And n becomes, for first year, it is 1, and second year 2, third year 3, fourth year 4. And if you calculate, you will be getting a PV factor of 0.84, 0.70, and so on. What does it mean? 1 rupee. Today, after 1 year, at a discount factor of 19% is 84 paise. For 2 years, it is 70 paise. For 3 years, it is 59 paise. For 4 years, it is 49 paise, and so on. So here I have calculated the PV factor. Now, whatever I have calculated, it is for how many rupees? It is for 1 rupee. So you multiply that into the cash inflow, 20,000, whatever you are going to get will be the present value of the total cash inflow. So 20,000 into 0.84 is 16,800. What does it mean? So 20,000 after 1 year, if I'm going to receive, the today's value is 16,800. So today's value is 21,180 for what I'm going to receive after 2 years. Now here you can see I am going to receive 30,000 after 5 years, but today the value of 30,000 is 12,600 at a discount factor of how much? 19%. Now, when you multiply this column with the PV factor, whatever you get is called as the present value of cash inflow. The cash inflow you sum up, you minus with the cash outflow, and as we calculated NPV, you please calculate the NPV, and you have seen your NPV is here how much it is negative. Now, if my NPV is negative, I have to increase my NPV to make my NPV 0. Now, what is my idea behind this IRR is I am going to make my NPV 0. Now, in this trial and error method, initially I have taken 19%, and for that my NPV is how much? My NPV is minus 750, which is a negative value. So I want to make my NPV 0, thereby I want to increase my NPV. Now, if you want to increase your NPV, you should always reduce your PV factor. Okay. So since I am planning to increase my NPV, I am reducing my PV factor. So your PV factor here, I am reducing it by 1%, and I am seeing it is 18%. For 18%, again, you calculate the PV factor using the formula 1 divided by 1 plus R to the power of n, where R becomes 18% now. 18% is 0.18. For first year, it is 1, second year 2, third year 3, fourth year 4, and fifth year it is 5. Once you calculate that, you will be getting all these as your PV factors. Now, all these, whatever you have calculated is for how many rupees? It's for 1 rupee. I have to multiply it with the PV of cash inflow, which is 20,000. So you multiply 0.847 with 20,000. Be very careful. Multiply 0.847 with the 20,000, then 0.718 with 30,000, 0.609 with 40,000, 0.516 with 50,000, and 0.437 with 30,000. Now, once you multiply this with this column, whatever you are going to get is the present value of cash inflow at a discount rate of how much? 18%. Now, you do that, you sum up all that, whatever you are going to get is called as the total cash inflow. You add it, you minus with the cash outflow, so you are getting an NPV. So my idea is to make NPV 0, but here I am not able to make NPV as 0, but I have got totally two values. One is NPV negative value, another one is NPV positive value. Well and good. Please have one value as minus and please have one value of plus. Once I have got that, you please substitute in the formula. I have taken the first formula where the higher rate. Now you can see in both these cases, higher rate is how much? 19%. So substitute higher rate as 19% minus NPV of higher rate. What is the NPV of higher rate here? 750, take 750, okay. So NPV of higher rate 750, already I have taken the minus sign, so you need not put the minus there, just take NPV as 750 divided by difference in cash flows. Now what is the difference in cash flow? If you see in both these cash flows, 1750 minus 750 minus of minus, so you will be getting 2500. Now how do you calculate the differences? 17,550 minus of minus 750, thereby it becomes positive, giving me an answer of 2,500 into difference in these rates. Now what is the difference in these rates? The 19% and 18% difference is only 1%. So you take that 1% multiply, I'm getting an IRR of 18.7%. Now this is how we do. Now for easy calculation purpose, I have taken 19% and 18%. Now you can try doing it with 10%, and if you are getting a negative value, no problem. Next again you try doing it 15%, again you might get a negative value. Again let's try with 20%, you might get a positive value. So you will take 10% and you will take 20%. For that you will be calculating. In that case, the difference in rate will be 20 minus 10, and the difference in rate here, it might become 10%. When you calculate, you will end up with the same answer of 18.7%. You can just try at home with different same problem, try with different PV factors and see whether you are getting the same answer. Any queries are there, you can just WhatsApp me so that I will give you better understanding on what it is. Okay, so with this we conclude capital budgeting. Next session we will be discussing on cost of capital. So now I request the students to give your feedback on this online live class. I put that polling screen. You can look at the screen and you can give your feedback. Thank you.